All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is up? Tuesday night wrestling with ADHD, and I am your host, Bruce. I told y'all guys 2 weeks ago that I had a guest, a special guest, one of the first guys, actually the first wrestler to reach out and want to tell his story. So, without further ado, Mr. Trinity Williams or Morris, Trinity Williams, Trinity Morris.
I mean, there's a lot I know with the last name Williams, but yeah, that isn't the
Most definitely not you.
way to put my M in the wumbo.
Mr. Morris, how are you today?
uh, could have been better, doing better now that I'm home.
Good, good, good. Yeah, I know how that is, man. So, Trinity wrestles in Georgia. He's a professional wrestler in Georgia. He wrestles a couple of different promotions there. And, man, for the past probably 15 minutes, we kind of had an opportunity to pick each other's brains a little bit and kind of just figure it all out. So, without further ado, Trinity, you got the floor, man.
So, I mean, as a lot of people I would guess, I mean, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and it was diagnosed to me very early as a kid. Uh, I grew up with a very crazy family that turned into rivals somewhat, but with ADHD, it kind of, whether it was school when I was young or being with trying to fit in and everything, ADHD was hard. I kept, anytime I was looking out the window, I'd be gone for hours. Classwork, nothing. Any kind of friendship or anything, nothing. I would look out the window and just be in La La Land for ages. Uh, Sometimes I get in trouble for saying things I don't mean. I would speak out of instinct instead of thinking. Uh, Influences on a lot of stuff, including cursing sometimes. And of course, not being able to contain knowledge. I could tell you what happened every single minute of Monday Night Raw before I could tell you what happened to Christopher Columbus back whenever he traveled to America. And uh, overall, I grew into when doctors would give me medication. For ADHD, I took about 4 or 5 pills a day. That was the worst stuff I've ever felt in my life. I didn't feel like myself. I I was I don't even know how to say it. Basically a zombie.
Yes.
It was basically a zombie for so long, and literally the only way that made me feel somewhat instinct is pro wrestling. Uh, I was I felt like I was born into pro wrestling. When my mom was pregnant with me, she went to her and my dad actually went to go see Goldberg versus Hogan for the
Oh,
WCW
wow.
title. Uh, while she was pregnant with me, which is really crazy. When I was a baby, they took me. We were living in Kentucky at the time, Kentucky and Georgia. We were going both ways. Uh, they took me to the Six Flags up there, and of course in Kentucky, OVW, aka where John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Batista are all from.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually when Cena, Orton, and all of them were in OVW. She took me to go see them when I was a baby, and flash to forward to 2002 was my first episode of WWE. Cena's debut of all things, who grew to become my favorite wrestler of all time. Uh, and then, of course, grew more into my wrestling knowledge when I got older. I found out about TNA and New Japan and grew into more loving these guys like AJ Styles, Frankie Kazarian, Bobby Roode, James Storm, and all of them. New Japan, learning about Shinsuke Nakamura, Okada, Tatsuya Naito. And
So, sorry, not to cut you off, but that actually answers one of the questions that I got. One of the major questions was who did you watch growing up, and what were who were your influences? And that right there, man, that is a laundry list of guys to grow up watching. That's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot of. I don't want to. I don't want to say it was wrestling insiders that put me into it because I mean I grew into watching guys like Steven Larson and everything. Uh, the more I grew up and started learning more about the business of wrestling, and the more I got into the business, the more I started watching them. Uh, but during then, like people would be like, I one day that was the funny thing. Somebody asked me how I found out about TNA. TNA, I found out just scrolling through TV. Literally sitting scrolling through TV one night. I had a cable box in my room at that point, a little small one that in
Mm.
Xfinity/Insight, where you could go through basic channels. And I went on Spike TV, and all of a sudden, this is after Jeff Hardy left WWE. I'm heartbroken about Hardy leaving, and then all of a sudden, I turn on Spike TV. What's Jeff Hardy doing in a ring? And seeing all these new guys and everything, and especially in TNA, AJ was like the first guy I fell in love with from that company that I didn't recognize or anything, and he's been one of my favorites since then. And luckily, I was able to follow him a little bit into his New Japan stuff, and then of course me marking out, screaming at the top of my lungs when he debuted in the Rumble.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the way I got into the business was really weird. I was on Facebook one day and somebody posted a post that said, "What were you bullied for as a kid?" And of course, wrestling was one of them because right around the time I went to elementary school, everybody was like, wrestling's fake. Like you're just watching guys in underwear just hug each other in baby oil. And I mean, they would also say it's
I remember
gay.
that. I remember that hurt my feelings a lot because
It
like
always hurt my feelings. The fake
all those
word
guys,
has always hurt my feelings since I was a kid, and I don't
all
know
the
why.
all those guys are larger than life, and in our minds, they're absolutely real. And to hear
Yeah,
that, it's like no, you're fake, you're fake.
like I hear fake, and I'm like, does man on Mick Foley getting thrown off a 20-foot cage sound fake? Does people dying in a ring sound fake? Like, and then, well, the funny thing is, the more I grew up, I got into high school, and somebody told me, it's fake, and I was like, the Avengers and Avatar is fake, right? All that's fake, right? We still watch it, right? Ah,
Yep,
good
yep.
story. Uh, and and then finally, after I got into the business and everything, I got trained a little, not too much, but a few certain people out of Indiana trained me whenever they could, would come out of their work schedule, out of also my schedule, because around the time I started training, I was also working at UPS and going to college while doing pro wrestling. So it was the biggest struggle I think I've ever done in my life. Naps on the bus became my best friend. But then eventually bad things happened in Indiana and I moved on down here. And it took me a little while to get my feet wet a little bit. I actually have a wrestling promotion 10 minutes down the road from me called Southern Honor Wrestling. I tried asking for them. They told me no. I mean, of course, they're a big company, and I understood. Then there was another one about 15 minutes down the road called Georgia Premier Wrestling. I didn't really have, the only thing that was really bad about it is I barely had any gear because when I was in Indiana, I did a nerd gimmick. So basically it was mainly jeans, a button up, and looking like Steve Urkel for half the show.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but they told me they wanted to give me a chance. They gave me a sign that was TJP Ricky Ray's. They had a seminar. Around that time, I just moved down here. I didn't have any money. I asked my dad if he would pay for the seminar. Of course, the old bastard made me work for it. uh, so then I went to Old Buffington Gym, trained under TJP and Ricky Ray's for a little bit. got really good notes out of it, and then also met Thunder Rosa that day. The
Wow.
same seminar. She came and did the seminar too, which was really cool. Uh, I forgot to say I did a Tracy Smothers seminar when I was in Indiana when I was first working, and also where I met a very very young and upcoming Billy Starks. Shout out to Billy Starks
Yeah, yeah, for
for
sure.
her AEW shirt, AEW Forbidden Door, everything. Like, girl has worked her ass off and has earned every little bit of it. Uh, and then
Sorry, it's one of the comments we just got. It's a trend, man. It's one of those things that it's one of those things that happens, but all too often you could tell the guys that are going to work their hardest are the guys that just stay persistent. And one thing in hearing just that little part of your story was that it was something that you wanted. It was something that you sought, and you persevered. And now look at you. How long you been in the business?
about 5 years.
5 years. Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah,
And
it's
yeah, so that's super cool. Yeah, I love that we may be separated by all these miles, but we both have similar stories when it comes to wrestling and then when it comes to ADHD as well.
yeah. I feel like that's what wrestling really brings in some people, especially the fans who love the story, whether it's story, character, whether it's just the moves they do, whether you like all the flips, whether you like strong style, whether you like just the traditional grappling or anything. Wrestling is like a mafia. Once you're in it, you don't get out. I mean,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen people try and do like 500 retirements and then come back 500 times.
Yep. I've got
It's
a
powerful.
oh yeah, it really is. It really is. Um and okay, so one more question. I mean, I've got a couple, but one more question. So with you with ADHD, do you prefer a more spotted out match, or do you prefer just walking and talking? Which one to you is have you found the most success in?
I, I feel like walking and talking does a lot better for me. I mean, I like to know what we do in the beginning, the end, and then the middle. Just let it be what it can. I feel like I work my best with that because with my ADHD, unfortunately, spots, if you call too many, I'm gonna scramble a little bit. Uh,
Yeah.
it's it's fun when you do spots and everything. You can plan out really cool stuff and everything, and I love seeing that, especially in some matches. The last 2 weekends ago, I got to see that, and it was just incredibly funny. Uh, but calling out in the middle, I mean, calling it out there, I feel like it helps a lot better, especially depending on who you're working with, especially when I have somebody a lot more in the business and everything. It helps comfort me a little. When I lead, it's a little bit more stressful, but I feel like if we work on it and as long as we just do what we can do, we can make a pretty good match out of it.
Oh, for sure. One thing that I'm the same exact way. I love a walk and talk match. I'll call an opener because it'll be easy to remember, and then I'll call an ending because it's easy to remember. Uh, like you said, if you've got somebody that you're working that is calling all these spots. One thing that used to, and I try not to do it so much anymore. One thing that used to bother me was I was so focused on remembering their spots so that I could remember my spots, and then I would end up forgetting all the spots.
Oh yeah, there was a whole match that we literally called spot for spot, and I literally went out there, did like two spots, and completely blanked on everything else. And the match looked like a dumpster fire, and I
Oh
hated
yeah.
myself for the entire. the entire night after everything. I literally had to sit there and just bow my head and just sit there.
Well, and it's difficult. It's difficult to, and you don't want to lead with, "Hey, man, maybe never met you before. This is what I can do. I've got ADHD, so if I forget a spot, please forgive me." Because when you're thinking about a match, you're not thinking, what's going on in here. That our our brain chemistry is different from somebody who doesn't have ADHD. So we're just thinking good impression. Maybe I'll hit all the spots that you call and the spots that I call, and maybe like you said, it won't be a dumpster fire, but I've got a few of those under my belt where it was like, let's do this spot, then we'll lead into this spot, and then so on and so forth, and then like halfway through the match, I'm like, guys, I'm so lost. I don't know.
Yeah, I look back on when I first moved down here and started wrestling. A lot of my matches were that way in some way, uh, where we would call these spots and everything. And I look back on those matches and I can look at them and I'm like, there's where you can see where I'm lost. There's where you can see I'm definitely lost.
it's the complete deer in the headlight. Like, I know there's supposed to be something that goes here, but I couldn't for the life of you. But then I couldn't for the life of you tell you what it is. And then after the match, you're like, oh my gosh, why did I miss that spot? I just now remembered every single thing that we were supposed to do.
Yeah, there was that's happened to me before. I would literally freeze and hear the crowd and everything, and I just get too overhyped or excited. And I'm like, my energy starts balling up and I start getting more bouncy with it. And it takes advantage sometimes, but I feel like uh that's why I like doing the in the middle stuff. So I feel like it's called in the middle. We can do it as we go and we can make it look a lot more better.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Uh, hey, what's going on, clown? Glad to see that you've logged on to watch. That is a really good DJ, man. He does the sound for Memphis Wrestling, Championship Wrestling for Memphis.
Ooh.
Yeah, he does. Man, he does it all. So it's cool to
Like
see.
Draven's little comment wrestling. There's something for everyone.
Yeah. I liken it. I liken it to ice cream, man. If you don't like one flavor, there's always 50 bajillion more that you could.
That's what
Uh,
I tell my wife sometimes. She watches wrestling sometimes and with me, or sometimes feels like she's got to watch it with me, or she'll come to the show and she'll be like, "I don't like this guy," and I'm like, "That's okay. You got like 500 more that are sitting right here that are a lot more entertaining. If you don't like
yeah,
this one."
yeah. Um, so one of the comments questions here, I'll go ahead and put that up there. Does ADHD play a part in having stage fright?
Oh, 100%. Uh, 2 weeks ago, I had a match with my buddy who, with a buddy of mine, a tag match, uh, against Hunter Drake, who is it was against New South Wrestling in Alabama. Shout out to them. It was New South versus our company, Renegade Championship Wrestling, uh, battle against brands and everything. And they told me I had a tag match with my buddy and on our team, and it was against Hunter Drake, who is trained by Ricky Morton of all people, and Dylan McQueen, who has also been on AEW Dark. In his face, I can't remember which Dark Order member, but he's also been trained by QT Marshall and Cody Rhodes.
Oh wow.
And to me, I felt like that. To me, it was also the chance to represent our brand, but it was also, oh crap, I'm facing these big, kind of big names. So,
Yeah. So yeah, Spencer, absolutely. Anybody that knows me, that's watching, that's around my area, I've learned over the years how to, I guess, how to put on a good mask and to the fans not really show that apprehension or nervousness, stage fright, so to speak. Um, you almost it's almost like you just have to rip the band-aid off and just do it, kind of hope for the best, so to speak.
Same with promos. I mean, because I've done a few especially if you're making promos or whether you're out doing a promo in front of everybody, it does have a lot of pressure on you. I mean, when you have a camera in front of you and you're just making promos, you can redo that. The one in front of the crowd is there's no retake. You stutter. I mean, you're gonna have to find a way to compose yourself. I mean, I did it one time and I took forever talking and I felt like I screwed up so bad. It's just you gotta take your time with it and calm yourself down and figure out the words before you go out. At least figure out the summary of what you're trying to say before you do it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Bruce just bites people.
That's that's a buddy of mine and tag partner at the moment. He's actually the guy that had the podcast and was like, "Hey, do do the podcast." You spoke of Indiana, wrestling up there. Like I understand, and I've wrestled a couple of places up north. The styles are night and day, um, in a lot of ways or in a lot of senses.
A lot of them like the old school way. I mean, I can't blame them, but there are some Indiana. I mean, both Indiana, Georgia, both have incredible deathmatch wrestling scenes. I've seen them both beforehand. Hell, the guy who got me started as a deathmatch wrestler of all things, but he didn't. Luckily, he didn't train me as much.
Uh,
Otherwise, I'd be
I've got
all
a I've got a
over.
I've
Uh,
got a really good friend that was at King of the Deathmatch a couple of years. Deadly Dale. Um, he actually wrestled Necro Butcher at King of the
ooh.
Deathmatch. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I've heard that, but I mean, like coming from there and then traveling down. Did you notice that it was more difficult with ADHD to kind of alter your move set and stuff? Not, I guess not really move set, but just kind of whole way of working.
Coming up with a way, because when I moved down to Georgia, I completely did a whole character reset. I did a
Oh,
whole character reset. I used to be a nerdy gimmick. I basically, like I said, I did just did the suspenders. I did everything, and I was already getting put into a story up there. But uh, I was unfortunately not able to finish the story.
yeah,
So, uh, as I moved down here, I sat there and I said, "Do I really want to keep doing this nerdy gimmick?" And I thought about it, and after like a month of camping in the woods for a little while during that summer, I thought about what I wanted to be, and I thought about it, and I said, I don't want to be this nerd. I want to be able to be a fighter. I've always been a fighter my whole life, whether it's between the ADHD, whether it's the heart disease I had when I was younger, or whether it's trying to be a pro wrestler. My mom even tell you I've always been a fighter for what I believe and what is my passion, and she will always tell you that I've always fought for pro wrestling. I've always been a diehard fan of pro wrestling, and uh, with the gimmick, I had to learn as I go, and especially I'm still learning now as I go. Thanks to uh, Brandon Collins, who's also been helping me along the way with that. And also thank you to Jaden Newman, who's been helping me along the way with that. Those have been the guys who've been working with me a lot. Jaden Newman, who runs TWE in Chattanooga, also uh, is a world class wrestler. He travels everywhere. Uh, and of course, Brandon Collins, he's a very local Southeast wrestler. He's very talented in his own way, and I thank both of them enough for the work they've been giving me. It's given me ideas to whether I can do a new gimmick and I can do that and this. And then along with my ADHD mind, I get really creative in thinking. Along with my million miles an hour, I sit there and like I could be playing a whole video game and literally will sit there, and as I see one little thing and I don't know why I would see it, but all of a sudden I would have a flashing idea and it'd be like, "Oh, I could
Yeah,
do
like a
this,
light bulb.
this, and this, and this," and would literally have no reason or idea of how I got it whatsoever. I could literally be playing a Spider-Man game and literally think of like what to say to a promo, and I'm like,
Mhm.
why?
Yeah, yeah. Well, just like Draven just commented, we're always learning. We're always evolving. One thing that I will say with ADHD in general is we're 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 quick to pick up new things. Sometimes we can sometimes we can get bored easily, so we have to try to always be innovative and always be evolving our characters so it's new and exciting, not necessarily well, kind of for the fans and kind of for the shows that we're working on, but also for us in general, because if you're doing something for a lengthy period of time, and then you show up to the show one night and it's the same thing. It's the same thing you've been doing, which feels like you've been doing it for 20 years. You're like, oh man, I gotta do something new, or I'm either gonna have to do something new or I'm gonna have to stop doing this, and I don't want to stop doing this, so I've got to do something new. Whether it
Yeah,
be
it's
sorry.
no, you're good. Sorry for interrupting, but
No, you're
it's
fine.
it's always been that way. I mean, that's how I've always been with wrestling as well. Like, there's nights that I watch Raw or SmackDown off my phone and literally watch a whole hour. And I'm like, if I'm not entertained by the first hour, I'm just going to go to bed or watch something else.
Yeah,
I do the same thing with AEW. Sometimes I do that with New Japan, depending on how good the card is. Uh, and especially with wrestling, I look at moves that people give me and I want to be able to put a twist on it. Like when one of the big moves that I do is when I throw them into into the post, I'll do a backsplash into an enziguri. For me, I want to be able to do. For me, I'm not the skinniest person.
oh,
If you
neither
look
am
at
I.
my videos, I am chunky in every single place imaginable on my body, almost. Uh, but if you ask the people that usually wrestle with me, I am very agile somewhat. I can do a lot of kip ups and do some stuff that some agile guys can do. I just can't do like the whole big springboard 450 moonsault off the top rope.
Yeah, yeah. I'm right there too, man. Uh, Hell, I just turned 40. I wish I would have started wrestling when I was 18, but I joined the Marine Corps instead. So after the Marine Corps, when I started wrestling, man, it was like old hat. I just took off the one hat and put wrestling on, and everything pretty much came almost natural. But at the same time, like over the years, there's been things that I do and that I have done that a lot of people are like, man, for a guy your size, you can really move. So I've noticed that in your videos. I've watched several of them. And so yeah, you're pretty agile, and I think that's super cool, man.
Yeah, it's I like to they always say go old school, but I like to mix the old with the new. Like
Yeah.
you can do stuff with Ricky Steamboat, but you can also do stuff that Kenny Omega or Adam Cole do. You can
Yep.
do some of that stuff. You can do the stuff that Hulk Hogan and Macho Man can do, but you can all. But if you can, I mean, at least every once in a while, do a little ricochet flip to make everybody go, "Whoa!"
Yeah, yeah. That way, you know, the old school wrestling and the old school way of doing things stays alive. You know, it's the same thing. It's the same thing at the base of it, but then you just kind of add your own little flair to it, and I think that keeps wrestling new and keeps it exciting.
Oh yeah. But with wrestling, I mean, you have to keep it exciting somewhat because somebody's gonna change the channel or see something new. I mean, like for instance, before you introduced me on the show, I was watching a wrestling clip. It's these two really big dudes in Austin, Texas, in a ring, and they start going back and forth and everything. Dude cuts them off and does a spear in the middle of the ring, and the corner of the ring collapse,
Oh wow.
broke straight in the middle of them, and I'm like. I was like, Jesus Christ. And then all of a sudden I heard somebody say, well, that's the opener for you. I said, that's the opener.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, stuff like that, you know, there's always ways to wow the crowd and pop them and you know, as a professional wrestler, we're entertainers, you know. It's you know, I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, you know, wrestling's a fake sport. It's not, you know, it's not a real sport." Well, I look at it as a real sport, and I think every wrestler does. You know, we have to. There's definitely a physicality to what we do in the ring. You know, you can't just you literally can't just walk off the street and do what we do. You know, there's training involved. There's a considerable amount of conditioning that we do, and uh, Draven says, I think that was Sam Stackhouse.
Yes, Sam Stackhouse. That's what I heard. That was the name. I couldn't remember his name. Thank you, Draven. But I agree with you with that. Wrestling, it is a hard sport to get into if you feel like your body can't take what it takes. If you can't feel like your body can't do what it takes to go at it, it's not a really good sport to join. I mean, with me, I did a lot of martial arts as a kid, and then I got back into it before I started pro wrestling. And that's where it came easy to me, where anytime they told me you need to do the rolls, I did the rolls perfectly. They told me to take a
Mhm.
bump. That was I just learned how to take a bump by myself. It was just easy.
Yeah, yeah.
uh but with the training as well, I mean, there's a lot of days where if you feel like you are going to be complaining all day about your back, I mean, we all do it every now and then, but feel like you're going to be miserable about your back hurting every morning, or you feel like your body's going to be hurting every morning, it's not really the sport to do. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do outside of wrestling as well. Like, for instance, we have an announcer who actually started doing pro wrestling around and actually started training around the time that I joined RCW, and he found out he just realized it wasn't right for him, and he's been working as our announcer and as like our video person. So like anything you guys see on my Facebook that says Renegade Championship Wrestling and has the name Cody Deadly on it, that's the man to do it. And to be honest, like my manager said a couple weekends ago, one of the best damn ring announcers in the Southeast, hands down.
That's awesome. So yeah, like you said, there's so many like professional wrestling, and there's so many jobs inside the bubble of professional wrestling that you can do. In fact, probably about 8 to 9 years ago, um, I trained a guy, and after the first night, he pulled me to the side and was like, "Man, I appreciate everything that you're doing, but I just can't. My body is just not going to allow me to do this." He's like, "Is there any other job that, you know?" It's like, "I just want to be a part of pro wrestling. You know, I loved it growing up. I loved watching it with my family growing up. Is there anything that I can do?" And I'm like, "Bro, yeah, you know, if you wanna, you know, referee, if you want to announce, if you want to manage, Um, so he tried out managing, and he passed away a couple years ago, but he was one of the best best referees around this area at least. Anytime anybody any name came in, Bill Dundee, Jerry Lawler, Jimmy Valiant, anytime any of those guys came in, they would give him a call because they wanted him to ref their matches. So
Hell
um,
yeah.
yeah, that was super cool, and he got to still be a part of the action, and still be an integral part of wrestling matches. Because he started out, and he was pretty a lot older than what I would normally like to train people. Mike Knowles, Draven. That's him. He traveled all over the Mid South. Was managed, or not managed, but refereed quite a few Hall of Famers matches because he was such a smooth ref, and he he made it. He made it. In my eyes, he made it. He wanted to be a part of the business, and he absolutely did everything that he could do to better himself and make it. And then, shortly before he passed, well, I wouldn't say shortly before he passed, but before he passed, he had made that he had that reputation of you know referee to the stars, so to speak. Anytime people would come in and work shows, like, they would always contact him, and he was their go-to ref. So really super cool.
I mean, that's actually really awesome. I mean, for someone to be able to make an impact after finding out that being a wrestler is not what they want is really awesome. And like I
Yeah,
always tell people who feel like, oh, I don't feel like I want to do that. Well, if you like doing pro wrestling, they're always security, managing, refereeing, announcing. They got a commentator's table. Can you talk? Are you funny?
yeah,
Are you entertaining? Get your ass on the table.
yep,
Or just anything in general, whether it's just going to be a guy dressed in complete black that just screws up a whole match. Like,
yeah, yeah. There's jobs out there for everybody, every walk of life. So yeah. Let's see here. So what kind of I haven't found my notes yet, but I'm going off here, so um that can be kind of dangerous. So what kind of things have you having ADHD your whole life, or being diagnosed at an early age? I'm sure there's things that I've learned to do to kind of cope, to kind of have it work for me. Let's say somebody's watching right now, and they're wondering, and in fact, one of the questions, this question actually came from a fan. So what kind of things have you been able to implement in your wrestling career, or in just life in general, to kind of pull back the reins a little bit?
well, with the ADHD, like, I want to be able to make my career exciting. I always like doing anything that I can do in a match. Like, I've been like 3 months into after 3 months after training, they threw me in a cage match, and like I was so excited for it. Uh, 2 months later, I got thrown into a hardcore match, but it
Mm.
was one of the most redneck hardcore matches you could have ever seen in your life. It was still awesome though, and I got praised for it for only being a rookie and being green, and then literally going out there and putting on a good match like that. And of course, with the help of the people who, like I said, Brandon Collins, Jaden Newman, I met a really good deathmatch wrestler, Tank, in the Rev. He's helped me somewhat with my stuff. Uh, just within the vast Anthony Henry. There's another one I completely forgot to mention him. Anthony Henry, who is signed with AEW actually also at the moment. He's helped me a little with what I've been able to accomplish within my move set and within training and everything. Uh, Career wise, I mean, championships, I mean, there really ain't none under my belt, unfortunately. But I mean, do I still want that dream? Like everybody says, I don't know why you want it. It's just a belt. To be honest, it's more than that. It's something I've always looked at as a kid. It's always been the dream of mine. It's always been the thing where I go to bed and that's what I want to dream about. I want to be the world champion. I want to
Mm-hmm.
be the guy that everybody looks up to with the big gold. And I've always said I have a lot to work on. I have a lot to work on that, but I know sooner or later there will be gold around my waist.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, man. One thing, just as somebody who's been wrestling for 14 years, to you, it will happen. A lot of guys, it takes time. Once a company recognizes that you're a go-to guy and that you can hold your own, that's really a lot that goes into it. So that's two big parts of it. As long as you're there to do your thing, and you're always there to put on a good show. As long as you're entertaining, that's a big part of it. And I know with me, like championship belts. Yeah, it's cool, and you can be the guy, but it's almost like in my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, if I think I'm doing a shit job, these people over here, they've obviously recognized something in me, and that's to me, that's like a gold star by my name. You know what I'm saying? It makes me feel good to know that people think highly of me, even if I think I'm a screw up 90% of the time.
Oh yeah. I mean, for a while I've always had my dumpster fire matches, or I've had matches I've looked at and was like, I could have done better for. But that's why I always look for people who can help me in the locker room, who would look at my match and everything and tell me how I did. And lately I have been getting praised. I've been on a roll lately, surprisingly. I haven't screwed up yet. But and it's kind of also with that ADHD, you also feel like you have that pressure. You're doing good. You feel like you're on a roll. You don't want to screw it up, but yet
Yeah,
it's there. It's a
and
million miles an hour of trying to feel like, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to make this better? What can I do to do this better? And like I said, with the people in the locker room, it's really helped me with whether it's getting whether it's helping the trainees, and they also help me at time. Uh, like for instance, one of my buddies who trains with me by the name of Damian Bradshaw, like there's times me and him will just sit there and go back and forth and just text all day long and be just literally go off of ideas and everything
Mhm.
and think like, oh, what would you think if this happened, or what would you think this would happen? And I like that I'm able to do that with people where I could call them and like be like, hey, what do you think of this and this? Or I can shoot them a text or shoot them a video and be like, hey, what do you think of this? And they give me feedback. I feel like that's uh I feel like it's a very big thing to help. We shouldn't be shitty about it, the criticism. If you didn't watch it, I mean you didn't watch it. It's fine. But like if you got that criticism, I've always told people I'm an open door. Tell me what I did wrong. Just don't beat the shit out of me for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm the same way. I man, I'll even talk to the younger guys in the locker room and be like, "Hey, watch this match, and when I get back, let me know what you saw, just to make sure kind of that I'm seeing the same thing, or that they're able to recognize some of the things that may have made a mistake. Because like I said, I don't care how long you've been in the business. Um, uh, Ric Flair and Hogan had botched spots from time to time, and people, I think sometimes they forget that we are all human, and and not to look at ADHD as a disability, because it really isn't. We just learn differently. We do things differently, uh, but just to a point. It's all basically the same thing. So yeah, the critiques in the back are absolutely really good. I tell guys all the time, like, if you see something I mess up on, please tell me, and I promise it won't happen again.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I can't tell them it won't happen again. I mean, I know there's gonna be a time I'll probably screw up eventually, the same way. I just won't know it. Uh, but I always love being, like I said, I always love having the criticism of everybody and being able to call and text or be able to send a video on YouTube and be like, what do you think?
Yeah,
With the trainees, I like being able to help them along the same way. It's a lot of them like to take and listen. I mean, a lot of them, I tell them I don't have that much information, but to be honest, you have a whole locker room that is willing to put on knowledge and everything to be able to, like, when I got to be able to meet Tank and everything, I sat there and listened to him and heard his stories, whether it was deathmatch or whether it was regular wrestling. And to be honest, it took a lot. And like, I do the same thing with a lot of the guys, like Anthony Henry. When he talked, I liked hearing his knowledge about it all. I mean, the criticism of a lot, whether it's a guy who has worked in WWE or AEW, or a guy who's just worked in a small indie show on Fight TV, or whether it's a guy who's just worked shows, small, big, 15 to 100 to 1,000 people. I mean, the criticism is good whether you get them. It's just how you take it. Like I've always heard, it's how you take it. You can take it one way and say, "Nah, fuck this guy," or you can take it and like learn with it and try something new with it. And especially with me having to learn different, I have to think about it a little bit before. I had to think about it a little bit before I can fully develop what they were saying. Like a lot of my a lot of my YouTube matches are the highlights. I look at stuff that they see in there, and after looking it over, and I'm like, oh, I see what you mean. Okay, and there are sometimes you still will see me catch the mistake, whether it's me turning the wrong way, or whether it's I mess up a spot by accident, or whether it's doing something. I'm not trying to mess up the spot, but I know when it happens and after like a few seconds of taking all in, that's when my head finally pops in and I'm like, oh, I'm in deep shit.
yeah. I'm the same. I'm exact same way. And what's weird is, like, there's some guys that may not realize it until after they do it, or after the match is over and they watch it back, or somebody says, "Hey man, you kind of botched that spot right there." Uh, one thing that I try to do is, like, well, one thing that I've realized that I do is, man, the second that I mess up, it's like boom, hey man, why did you do that? Why would you do this way when you should have went and done it that way? And what used to get me in trouble with my vets is, when they were critiquing and they would ask me something like, you were entirely too close for that spot. Why did you go ahead and go through it? And uh, it was one of those things where, like, because that was the spot. I had to get the spot in. That was the spot that was called in the back. So regardless of where I was positioned at, I was going to do it, because in my train of thought, I got to get through this spot to make it to that spot. And it's just when I was younger, a lot of the vets that I was around were just like, just shut up and take the ass chewing and realize you messed up. But I was like, okay, I get that, but I want to kind of explain myself. And they're like, we don't need you to explain. Just don't mess the spot up again, or don't do that part again. And then in my head, I'm beating myself up like, man, like I just want to tell you that um in the list of things that we were supposed to do when somebody called the spot, regardless of where I was at, I was going to do the spot because that was the spot that was called for me to do.
Oh yeah, and I've done that a million times where I've had to literally go where I would try to apologize for something I did wrong, and they'd be like, "We don't need to hear it. Just take what you heard and go with it." Uh, Especially there's some faults, especially with my ADHD, that kind of kill me at times. Interrupting people by accident, that is a bad habit off my ADHD. My brain processes it and it wants to immediately speak it out sometimes.
Yes, yes.
I I've done it where people would critique me about like a spot and tell me you did this really good, and I'd be so happy and I'm so energetic. I'm like, thank you, that was actually really cool, and keep going. Or if I fucked up, I would make an excuse by it. Uh, I've learned to back off the excuse of that. I've just gone to where if I feel like I've messed up, I would literally look at him and be like, bro, I'm sorry for messing up. And usually if someone down here sees like you messed up or you did something wrong to them by accident or you hurt them by accident, they will let you know. It's just not going to be like a, hey, you fucked up. No, it's going to be a fucking ass chewing in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially with that, I definitely know, especially with some of the people, I definitely know when that's happened, because there's been some times I've taken some stiff blows and I'm like, I feel like I've deserved that.
Yeah. Yep, yep.
I had a
Uh
dude clothesline me, and I had a dude clothesline me, and it literally knocked me silly. And I literally, after I hit the ground and I looked up, I said, I deserve that. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. Hey, and like you said, man, I'm really surprised that I was able to let you get through what you were saying, and so that's a star by my name. I'm excited for that. So yeah, we didn't step on each other too much.
Oh, yeah. I mean, an ADHD podcast, it's going to be a little bit of stepping, but hopefully not too damn much.
No, no, and I'm actually like with this, I really want to embrace the not really silliness of it, but I want to embrace the our little quirks and our usness. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh, yeah. With like we were saying before all this started, ADHD is a blessing and a curse. Sometimes you have your bad moments, sometimes you have your good moments. Good moments, I have some killer ass reflexes.
yeah,
Like I'm a huge Spider-Man person, so I call him my Spidey sense just for fun, shits and giggles. Uh, that like sometimes I can read minds without even thinking it. Uh, I can easily predict a story sometimes, like with wrestling. Uh, Especially with wrestling, I try to predict the story sometimes as I go.
mm-hmm,
I'll watch a story, and if I mess up with it, I'm like, all right, they're gonna do this and this and this.
yeah,
Like for
yeah,
instance, I've been basically predicting the whole Roman story as it goes and everything. I'd be hearing the rumors and everything, and I'm like, okay, so let's see what would happen if this, and this. Or I would even book my own version of how I would do it.
yeah. And the cool thing about that is like, man, it's like I'm a little bit older, so I call it my matrix sense. Ma-
Ooh.
so so it's kind of movie like where you see something like that and our brains project the different scenarios that could come from each thing, and from there that's like, okay, well, if he does this, this is going to happen, and if he does that, after that happens, then this is gonna happen. And then like when you see it, you're like, oh, I called it. I fucking called it.
That's how I always am. Like literally, I would do this with my buddies when I lived with them. My championships, my replicas are in there. When I used to live in Kentucky, I would play with my buddies, and I would sit there, and I have 5 chip replica belts at the time. I only have 2 now. Both of them are the spinner belts. Uh,
Sweet.
One of them has a story, and that one's actually one of the last things I owned in Kentucky that I have now. Everything else is literally brand new shit. But at the time, I literally would put the championships on the line and be like, if you can predict the pay-per-view better than I can, I will let you hold it until the next one when I beat you. There would be times they wouldn't beat me for like a year. I'd go a whole year just predicting, and literally they would be sitting there and be like, this is bullshit. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, going, let's fucking go! 3 out of 3!
Heck yeah. My kids, man, they hate watching pay-per-views with me because like I'm like, I know exactly what's going to happen on this match. And I kind of hate it though because like once I became a wrestler, I have to really force myself to watch wrestling as a fan. I am a huge fan of wrestling, but I have to really force myself to kind of watch it as a fan instead of like a wrestler, instead of like trying to analyze everything that's going on, looking for the wrestler's tails, looking for the move that's coming next. You see a match and you see like, oh, he just body slammed him and he's working up. This is the move he's gonna do next. So really analytical like that, where I have to kind of focus to watch it as a fan. But
For me, watching it as a fan is not a problem at all. I'm probably one of the biggest marks you'll ever meet in the wrestling business. There will be times that if I order a pay-per-view and it's on, like for instance, September 2nd is my birthday. Payback is also the same day. So is
right
Collision and everything else. Like I wrestled when CM Punk returned the Collision, and literally right before my match, I was watching Punk come out. It was the funniest. Like they get on me sometimes, and like some of them don't even want to watch it because they have a DVR, and they're like, "No spoilers!" And so I'm literally having to sit there in the corner, like phone in my face, literally watching the show, and then I'll walk outside, and literally, one of the refs we have will be sitting there with his phone watching it too, and so we'll just sit there and just start watching it back and forth on each other's phones while we're sitting there and waiting for our stuff. And then all of a sudden I get to a spot in the show where all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, this is happening. And all of a sudden they're like, Trinity, you're up next. And I'm like, son of a bitch. It's being able to be a fan with it is very much fun. Especially what I picked for myself, my plan for how I do it is I have 5 wrestlers that I would sit there, and those are the people that I would analyze their matches. I pick Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, Kazuchika Okada. Who else did I pick? Rob Van Dam and CM Punk. I picked those 5, and I said any matches that I watch of theirs has to be analyzed. Everything else is fan. I can watch everything else as a fan and mark out to as much as I want. Everything else, any of those names have to be watched. Like that's why I liked Forbidden Door this year, the double main event with Ospreay and Omega and Okada and Danielson. I literally got to enjoy Omega and Ospreay as a fan, like I did with Wrestle Kingdom, and then literally got to analyze Okada versus Danielson, and it was just epic. It was amazing.
that's super cool. So we've been on for almost an hour, actually a couple of seconds. It'll be an hour. Draven, I'm a fan of you too. I appreciate that. So yeah, I guess I guess it's about time for us to wind down, man. If there's anybody else you wanna shoot a shout out to, man, I'd love to hear it. I'm going to watch this back, and I'm going to be writing down all these names, and I'm going to digest all of their stuff that I can find.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them that I would definitely recommend. All the names I've said, I definitely recommend. For shout outs that I can think of anything, I mean, for both my promotions, if you're in the Tennessee area, the lower South Tennessee area, go check out TWE. It is run by Jaden Newman. He is in the list of the top 5 PWI 500 wrestlers in the world. He is in that list.
Right on,
He
right on.
wrestles there as well. They just had the Scenic City Invitational where they just actually had Timothy Thatcher
Oh
there for
wow.
it. Uh, Always go there. Mondays they have Crash Course, which is their student show. That's where I usually go to wrestle. It's $5 to get in. I mean, they do Saturday shows as well. I believe that's 10 or 15 to get in. Uh, if you are in the Chatsworth area, RCW, especially this Saturday. This Saturday we have a huge anniversary show, WrestleVersary 18. We
Oh
have
wow.
a world title match that's been going on for ages. Uh, we have definitely a battle between former friends, now bitter enemies. We have a match to see who is one of the best to come out of the Chatsworth area between Torque and Kevin Ryan. The friends and enemies match is Chris Crunk versus Joey Gambino. Chris Crunk is definitely another name I would check out. So is Kevin Ryan, the Akudo Death Society. Uh, of course, my team, Steve Dave Enterprises, will be putting their championships on the line in a pole match versus Crazy Train, Zach Malone and Jason Hampton, where they are putting my friend Crazy the Bear and a chain that we use to keep the tag team titles off of Malone and Hampton on a pole. If Malone and Hampton lose, they are gone from RCW. If Crazy Train wins, they get 5 minutes with my manager, Steve Dave. And to be honest, he's been pissing me off lately. So, I mean, we'll see. I might be able to get a laugh out of this. Brent Benner and Jake Murphy is the heavyweight title match. Definitely, if you want to check out any of those shows, look them up on Facebook. I believe TWE's on Twitter and Instagram, I believe. Both of them are incredible shows that I enjoy. And if you feel like you are in the Georgia area, check out any of them. We have plenty of promotions: KLT, NGWA, Battle Zone Championship Wrestling down in Carrollton, Action Wrestling in Tyrone, Georgia. Cody Rhodes' wrestling facility is in Georgia. You get Jake the Snake Roberts helps book Southern Honor Wrestling. So if you want to see that, they do a lot of people, like when 2019 Southern Honor had Kenny Omega, Jericho, Cody, and all of them before Double or Nothing. You can check them out. And of course, like I always say, support indie wrestling. And of course, anybody with ADHD out there, like, embrace the ADHD. Don't think it's a curse. It can be a curse at times. Just don't make it. Don't make it the full on curse. Make it a blessing. Embrace some of them. See what you can do. You could have spidey sense like me. You could have plenty of different quirks and different kind of mess ups, but it's what makes us us. And especially if you want
Absolutely.
to try the pro wrestling, definitely get into it if you can. Find the nearest school, get the biggest help you can from the best. Whether you're in Arkansas, hell, he's there. If you go to Tennessee, there's plenty of schools there. Georgia, we have a WWE Superstars facility. Florida, I mean, there's plenty of places to go there.
Oh, for sure.
Anywhere has a wrestling facility almost. There's no state that I know that doesn't have a wrestling school, or at
Yeah.
least someone that can at least take the time to work with you and learn from all of them. Listen. And of course, the biggest advice I always get, especially as an ADHD motherfucker, if you don't think you're slowing down enough, slow the fuck down.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and put my 2 cents in. Man, I used to think when I first started that a couple of promotions were the beginning and end of wrestling, and then I started traveling. I started realizing, I started learning and soaking in all this knowledge from all these different people. If you can't make it to a school, man, hound the shit out of your local promotion. I'm sure there's a bunch of vets there that have done some amazing things that would love more than anything to pass on their knowledge in wrestling. So get out and support wrestling and everything.
Absolutely.
All right, Trinity. Man, it was a blast getting to know you, and I may be reaching out. Georgia's one of the states that I'd like to mark off the list, and maybe we can do some business.
Of course. I mean, I'm always down for business either way. Uh, if you're ever in the Georgia area, I mean, I have names I can give you that can definitely give a reach out to. There's plenty of people that work down here and everything. I work in some promotions if I get to. Just right now with everything in my life, I'm taking a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of a steady schedule. But if you definitely reach out, I definitely reach out, whether it's a part 2 of this or whether it's getting to wrestle. Either I hope to see you in the ring or hope to see you in the locker room at least.
Absolutely, man. That'd be absolutely great. One other thing that I love doing is I love putting everybody over. I love that wrestling is so expansive and that we can all help each other out a little bit. So again, thank you so much for coming on. You are absolutely the first person to reach out. So man, I am so excited that we got to do this, and I like the idea of part 2. So
Of
stay tuned.
course.